So, this week is Parshas Beshalach. And Parshas Beshalach is a whole new situation. Right? If Parshas Shmois is the parsha of Golus, and Parshas Va'era is the parsha of the process of Geula, Yidden are no longer slaves, and Mitzrayim are being smitten, and not with love. Parshas Boy is the actual Geula, right? We actually made to leave Mitzrayim. So Parshas Beshalach is, I guess, the celebration of Geula. The Shabbos Shira, this week is Shabbos Shira, the Maral Meprag used to give the children, to give the birds.
The culmination of the culmination.
It's hard to know exactly the distinction between Boy and Beshalach. Perhaps as this class evolves, something will come forward to enlighten the unique point of Beshalach as opposed to Parshas Boy. And just to make a suggestion that the translation of the word Beshalach is he kicked them out. Beshalach, Parhsa, that the part of the Jewish people from Mitzrayim came b'derech shiluch. He threw them out. In Parshas Boy we describe, I suppose, how Hashem, as they call it militaries, softened them up and softened them up so much that they were ready for unconditional surrender. And Parshas Beshalach is the Exodus. He kicks them out. Although in Parshas Boy you already have a description of Yidden going from Ramses to Sukkot, whatever the case may be, but Parshas Beshalach is not the parsha of the Mitzrayim finally being willing to let Yidden go, but Yidden actually going. But the name of the parsha is Beshalach, and the word Beshalach denotes that Pari threw us out. Now you'll see later the significance of this. This is what our parsha begins. As you know, what is our parsha about? Our parsha is about the Jewish people leaving Mitzrayim, but hanging around. They don't just leave Egypt and disappear. They linger. And the result of this lingering is that the Egyptians start to get ideas. Especially when the Jewish people seems to be making what looks like an about face. And they pursue the nation of Israel, they pursue the Jewish people, the Egyptians do. They catch up to them at the river, at the Yam Suf, at the sea. And there's probably 5 opinions what the Yam Suf is and where the splitting took place, which is another issue for a different time. And the end of the story was that the Egyptians were completely annihilated in the Yam Suf. The Jewish people sang praise to Hashem. The Jewish people actually had the merit of witnessing, of seeing the dead Mitzrayim float to the surface. A, so they should be able to collect the spoils that they traditionally took with them into battle. And B, so they should know that the Egyptians were not spared and just delivered to a different piece of land, but they were actually destroyed. The Jewish people sing Shira, they take the wealth of the Egyptians, and they go off into the desert. This is what our parsha is about. And of course it's going to culminate next week when Hashem is actually going to give us the Yidden Torah. And our parsha begins in a very, very odd way. I really think this is a funny way to begin a parsha like this. The discussion of the first pasuk is, it's one of the many symptoms of the unpredictability of Torah. Because it begins on Ma'aseh with Plishtim. And it was Beshalach Parhsa, when the Pharaoh divorced throughout the nation. God Almighty did not lead them derech, through the way of Eretz Plishtim, the lands of the Plishtim, the Philistines, the Palestinians, as it were. Right? Ki karevu. Ki, it's near. Now, ki could mean because it's near, and ki could mean though it's near, as you'll see in the various commentaries. Why? Why didn't he take them to the path of the land of the Plishtim? Ki karevu. Ki Yom Elokim, Hashem says, and notice the name Elokim, as opposed to the name Havaya, Ki Yom Elokim, it doesn't say Ki Yom Hashem. That the divine name Elokim, which typically denotes judgment, says, the Jewish people may regret departing from Israel, but if they'll encounter war quickly, Mitzrayim, and they'll run back into Mitzrayim. So Hashem doesn't take them derech eretz plishtim, He takes them circuitous routes. Now, if you ever looked at a map, you understand exactly what the Torah is talking about. There is the Mediterranean Sea. Mediterranean Sea is it's an inlet, the largest inlet in the world, that separates Europe from Africa. Europe is on top, Africa is underneath. There's a little thin straits, a little thin space that you can actually, I even think you can see across from Europe into Africa on the Straits of Gibraltar, that you can cross with a rowboat from one continent to a different continent. That's the mouth where the Mediterranean Sea falls out into the Atlantic Ocean. And Rashi in Gemara Masechta Gittin, which the boys are learning this year, calls it Seif Ha'olam, the end of the world. The end of the world is the end of the Mediterranean. It's actually a funny Rashi. And to the east you have Asia. To the north you have Europe. To the south you have Africa. And to the east you have Asia. Mitzrayim is the northeastern tip of Africa. Eretz Yisrael is the southwestern tip of Asia. Asia Minor, as it's called. And you can go directly up, north to south. You go straight from Mitzrayim, straight into the Eretz Yisrael, along the western coast, along the Mediterranean. That's called Derech Eretz Plishtim, right? The shortest way between 2 points is a straight line. That's a straight line. Straight up. Straight from Egypt. I saw in the Sforno that I prepared, 10 days journey, you go straight into Eretz Yisrael. Straight up. God Almighty doesn't lead them on the path of the Eretz Plishtim, on the Palestinians, because Alakim is afraid, and notice again, the name of Alakim, they're going to have a regret, they're going to regret it, and they're going to return to Mitzrayim. Okay? So, what's the question? The question is this exactly important at this moment? I mean, Yid not leaving Mitzrayim, it's such a dramatic event, it's so unbelievable. What's important? What's important is the pillar of cloud, the pillar of fire, Moshe taking the remains of Yosef HaTzadik. This whole scheme, Kvayochel, that Hashem sets in motion to lure the Egyptians to follow the Jewish people and lead them to their final demise, that makes sense. What with Palestinians? Plishtim, Philistines. What's that? The last time the word Plishtim was mentioned in Chumash was in Parshas Beshalach, when they were born. Philistines and Palestinians are not the same people, not at all. The Philistines, I don't even think they were from Bnei Chom. They came from the north, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And the Palestinians are Arabs. They're Semites. It's a totally different people. But in any case, so we have a bunch of opinions, and I must tell you that the distinction between the opinions in this case is subtle. In other words, one of the things that I love to do is to juxtapose, to show you different points of view, different insights, different commentaries, different enlightenments. On this particular issue, everyone says more or less the same thing, but there is sufficient distinction to justify identifying different commentators. Now, I want you to know this. In 1965, the year that Rebbe lost his mother, every week he was Fabreng. And every week the Rebbe spoke at Rashi, the first Rashi in the parsha. Which is why you see that there's such a consistent availability of Sichas, because every Shabbos the Rebbe spoke the first Rashi. The Sicha of the Rebbe on this Rashi is like 3/4 of the Fabrengen. I've spoken about the Rashi for an hour. And what I've done in the recent past is that as soon as we learn the Rashi, I read the Sicha with you. I'm not doing that this week. We're going to save the Rebbe Sicha for the end, if time will allow. Okay? I'm going to tell you only one gedank, one nuance which the Rebbe reads into Rashi, which is actually said by one of the other Mefarshim, but the Sicha proper of the Rebbe on this Vayi Beshalach Parhsa and the whole Shturim, the Rebbe doesn't focus so much on the Vayi Beshalach as much as he focuses on the V'loi Nocham, we'll leave for the allowance of time at the end of the class. So let's read the Rashi. Vayi Beshalach Parhsa, when the Pharaoh threw the Jewish people out of Egypt, and he didn't lead them. I'm reading Rashi. He didn't read them through the direct route, derech, the path, the road, Eretz Plishtim, the land of the Plishtim. Says Rashi, what does the word Nocham mean? What does the word Nun, Ches, Mem denote? Says the Rebbe, it denotes the same thing as go forward, and Nechei, lead the people. So the Rebbe, Rashi translates the meaning of the word Nacham has a denotation of Nechei, of lead. He says, Kamai, like Leich Necheisam, go forward and lead the people. Or, Behesalachecha, as you walk, Tanche Oisach, he will lead you. Now, I'll just share with you what the Rebbe says. The Rebbe says that Rashi wishes to translate the word Nacham. Nacham means to lead, but there are many other words that mean to lead. Nihug, Hanhoga, also means to lead. His halech, to walk along with, also means to lead. The word Nacham, which is one of the multiple words that denotes to lead people from one point to another, is unique because it has two translations. It means to lead, and it also means to give comfort to. And Rashi brings lech nechei, so nechei means to lead the people. When you walk, Hashem will make it pleasant for you. So Rashi is saying, Hashem doesn't take them, doesn't lead them in a pleasant way. Plishtim. So Rashi brings two psukim to translate the word Nacham, because each pasuk gives a different dimension. That when Hashem was leading the Jewish people out of Egypt, He led them pleasantly. But like Nacham, He didn't lead them what would have been the most pleasant route. Plishtim, He took them a different route. There's a lot of shturim in the Rebbe Sicha, but that's what the Rebbe says. He didn't lead them, but the word Nacham doesn't simply mean to lead. It means to lead with a sweetness and a pleasantness. Hashem didn't lead them in a sweetness and a pleasant way. Plishtim, because it's near. Turn the page. Kikare, because it's close. And because it's close, page 2. Because it's close, v'neach, it's easy, loshav, to return, but on the same route, Mitzrayim to Egypt. And the Midrashim have all different types of insights. So he says it's easy to go back the same way you came, so he didn't take him with that route, which reminds me of a story which I have to share with you, even though I'm wasting time. The Alter Rebbe had a chassid, a big chassid, the big Gaon, the big chassid, who had a son who was very bright and very, very gifted. He was talented, and he was coordinated and sophisticated. And when he grew up, he became terribly rebellious. And he really, to be sure, he became fry. He dropped everything. The son of this chassid. And of course, the chassid was very devastated, especially since his son had to be such a gifted boy, such a promising chassid, and here he had gone off to who knows where. And he became a jockey. He rode racehorses. The father was beside himself. So the father comes to the Alter Rebbe and says, Rebbe, I have this terrible problem. What do I do? So Alter Rebbe says, the next time your son visits, all you have to do is get him to me. I'll take care of him, bring him to me. So when the son came, the father very tactfully and wisely worked out that the son would agree, and he worked out that. And he comes to Alter, and he told him right away, he says, believe me, your Rebbe is not changing my mind, nobody's changing my mind, I got my own life, I'll talk to your Rebbe, but if he's going to mess with me, you're wasting your time, and I'm not going to talk to him. So he's coming to the Alter Rebbe. Now the Alter Rebbe is not our Rebbe, it's the Alter Rebbe, but he figures Alter Rebbe is going to try to, lecture him about hell and heaven and afterlife and eternity and so on. And instead, Alter Rebbe is talking to him about horses. And he shows quite a knowledge, quite an expertise at the field, and the boy is taken in by the broadness, the character of the Alter Rebbe. He's actually what the word open-minded really means, not how it's become euphemistically abused. And the conversation becomes so comfortable that he forgets that this is the enemy, They talk for a meshach zman.
For how long?
15 minutes, whatever it is. It doesn't say how long, but the implication is that he was very relaxed. In any case, finally the Alter Rebbe says, so, in your opinion, which is better, a fast horse or a slow horse? In other words, the culmination, he says, excuse me? We would have this conversation, you clearly know horses. Where'd that question come from? What happened? You went into your alter ego? It's such a meaningless question. So he says, what do you mean? Of course a fast horse is better. You win a race with a fast horse. Says the Alter Rebbe to him, but if you go astray, you go very far, very fast. So he says, but when you realize you've gone astray, you return just as quickly. So he walked into the Alter Rebbe's trap. Alter Rebbe, when you become aware, and he repeated again, as mechabtzach, which means in Yiddish, when you become aware that you've gone astray. And the Alter Rebbe must have said it with the Alter Rebbe's hatoma, with the Alter Rebbe's trap, and the fellow broke down. Because he understood that the Alter Rebbe was talking to him. So Rashi says, just like it's an easy route out, it's an easy route back. It's an easy route back. And Rashi continues, when you see battle, again, for example, Melchemes, the battle of Yered HaMoleki Vaknani, again, with the wars that the Jewish people encountered with Amalek and Canaan, they got the direct route, they would have returned. The war of Yered HaMoleki Vaknani was at the end of the 40 years. Had it occurred at the beginning of the 40 years, they would have returned. And if After he took them on this circuitous route, still, Amru, they still said, let's appoint a new leader and return to Egypt. If they had taken them on direct road, certainly they would have said, we're going to go back into Mitzrayim. Perhaps they will regret, they will reconsider, they will doubt their departure from Mitzrayim, and they'll contemplate returning. So Rashi explains what the Torah is saying. Hashem has taken Yidden out of Mitzrayim. And to use the classic Tanya, chapter 31, everybody knows, when the Jewish people left Egypt, they ran away. But they weren't running away from the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh was kicking them out. They were running away from themselves because they knew full well that they're not ready to leave Egypt spiritually. In fact, they were immersed in 49 gates of spiritual impurity, and the Egyptian and the Jew were almost indistinguishable. So the Jew runs out of Egypt, the lights went on, he experiences the divine revelation. He runs out of Egypt literally before he could change his mind. They're escaping from Mitzrayim. Says Alter Rebbe in Tanya 31, they're escaping from themselves. When Mashiach comes, we're not going to run. But when we left Egypt, we ran away from ourselves. So the Eibishter is aware of this. So he's aware that their whole departure, their whole exodus is tenuous. He wants to preserve it. So he wants to make it easier. The best way to make it easier is to avoid conflict. Don't make it hard. Make it as easy as possible. And the Eibishter elects the way to make it easy as possible is to take them into the desert. Don't take them directly home. You understand? Yes, sir.
Rashi uses Amalek as a...
Amalek and Canaan, right.
Amalek was the second thing out of right after Parshas Beshalach.
That's a different story. I'll tell you why that's different.
That happened.
That's different because this was not an enemy in the land that they were meant to conquer. This was an enemy that came after them. The Mefarshim all mentioned your question. Your question is by all the Mefarshim. You see, you didn't know how big a Talmud Chacham was. The Mefarshim asked a question. And they say this is different because Amalek pursued the Jews. The Jews would not feel safer in Egypt because of Amalek. But they would feel safer in Egypt because of Canaan. You understand? Where they were going. You understand? This is Rashi. What does the Rebbe say in this Rashi? So first of all, I told you that the Inoche means to lead them in a peaceful way. But he also says Nocha Kvech, another nuance which is relevant to the same issue, which is similar to the Tanya idea that I mentioned a moment ago. Vayihi Beshalach Pare. It was. You should know that in Chazal, Vayihi is a Lashon Tzar. Vahaya is a Lashon Simcha. Vahaya, and it will be, as a terminology that denotes joy. Vayihi, and it was the Lashon Tzar. This is in the Gemara, like Vayihi. The word Vayihi, and it was, is considered in the Gemara a negative terminology. Vayihi, and it was. What was negative? Beshalach Pare. The Jews left because Pare threw them out. There were many Jews who didn't want to go. They wanted to stay in Egypt. And the Pharaoh threw them out. Because Vayihi Beshalach, therefore V'lei Noch. And that's what the Rebbe says. Look at the Rashi. Go back to the first page. Vayihi Beshalach Pare v'goymer V'lei Nocham. Says the Rebbe, I don't understand. Rashi is translating only the words V'lei Nocham. Why does he bring Vayihi Beshalach Pare v'goymer? Because the reason Hashem is afraid to bring the Jewish people directly into Egypt is because of the Beshalach Pare. The Jews only left, some of them only left, because the Pharaoh is forcing them to leave. If that's the case, their departure is tenuous, their exodus hasn't taken full root, I can't go directly into Israel. Shame? Shutta Shalmik. As the Rebbe learned Shutta Shalmik. Of course, the Sicha of the Rebbe is very, very long, and it's printed on the back of your stack. You're welcome to read it at home if you wish. But that's the Nekudis that the Rebbe brings out in the Rashi. Any questions or comments? So let's read Even Ezra. Okay? The first page, page 8. First page, page 1. Even Ezra is right beneath the Rashi. I made an arrow and a base. You see it? V'yadu, it is known, ki mitzrayim ad Yerushalayim, from Egypt to Jerusalem. But Jerusalem is the center of Eretz Yisrael, not in the south. Derech Plishtim, through the land of the Philistines, is not very far at all. In fact, it's a distance of 10 days. It's not 10 days from Egypt to Israel. It's 10 days from Egypt to Jerusalem. But derech if you go on the straight road. Okay? And his proof is the following. The Lula is if this were not the case, that it's a 10-day journey from Mitzrayim to Yerushalayim, we would all have a very interesting question. That is, how did the Shvatim, the tribes, travel in times of famine with their donkeys till Egypt? There was a famine. Now what happened in times of famine? What happened in times of famine? In times of famine, there's not enough food, right? If you have a donkey and you have to feed it, there isn't enough food to feed the donkey. So you're going to travel to Egypt with a donkey. It's a 25-day journey. All the food you're going to purchase, the donkey's going to eat. So Ibn Ezra says he cannot say that between Jerusalem, and he's assuming the Jews are living in Jerusalem, I don't know why. And Mitzrayim is only 10 days journey if you go straight. If the distance was great, what would have been left over? That they would eat and the donkeys would eat. What would they bring home? In other words, if the Shvatim went to Mitzrayim, purchased food and returned home with a substantial quantity remaining, clearly it wasn't that long a trip. It was all of 10 days. So the Ibn Ezra says it's 10-day journey from Mitzrayim to Egypt. Turn the page. And now the Ibn Ezra continues. And he brings Omar Rabbi Moshe. He quotes a rabbi named Rabbi Moshe. I do not know who this is. It's for sure not Ramban or Rambam. It's for sure not Ramban. Ramban quotes Ibn Ezra. I don't think it means Rambam, although it may be. And he says as follows. Afal pishu karif. Right? The pasuk says, Hashem doesn't lead them through the land of the Philistines. Ki karavi. Because it's near, says Rashi. Because it's near, they get the trouble. The Ibn Ezra trying to ski a little differently. Though it's near. Afal pishu karav. Even though it's near. Now skip what I bracketed, please. Skip what I bracketed. Ulefidaiti ein tzerech. And Ibn Ezra disagrees with Rabbi Moshe and says you don't have to say that afal pi, that ki means afal pi. Okay. Ki ta'amai. The way you read it is lama loy nacham ulakim derech eretz Plishtim. Why didn't Hashem lead you to the lands of the Philistines? Ba'avur shu karif. Not even though, but because it's close. In other words, Ibn Ezra agrees with Rashi. He brings Rabbi Moshe who says ki karif means even though it's close. And he agrees with Rashi, means he didn't take them to the Philistines' lands because it's close. And then the Ibn Ezra the same thing as Rashi. So what did we add from the Ibn Ezra to Rashi? Not very much. Ibn Ezra himself actually agrees with Rashi. He just adds that there's a 10-day journey, all told from Mitzrayim to Yerushalayim. And agrees with Rashi that because it's close, he didn't bring them this route. Rabbi Moshe, I don't know what Rabbi Moshe is, says, though it's close, he didn't bring him this route. Turn back, and let's do now. No, I'm sorry. Stay on page 2. I apologize. Stay on page 2. We're going to do now the Ramban. The Ramban brings Rashi, and he also brings the Ibn Ezra, and he points out V'gamu das Rabbi Avraham that the Rabbi Ezra and Rashi agree. And he says, Avol Hanochain. This is the Ramban, right here, second paragraph on the second side of the second page. Right there. The correct interpretation. You should read it as Plishtim. He didn't lead them the road of the land of Plishtim. Asher hu karif. That is close. It would have been correct to lead them on that road. So the Ramban is agreeing with the Rabbi Moshe from the Ibn Ezra. Ibn Ezra himself and Rashi hold because it's close he didn't lead them. The Rabbeinu Moshe and the Ibn Ezra and the Ramban now are saying, though it's close, he didn't lead them. Afal pi, even though it's close, he didn't lead them on this road. It would have been the best thing. I'm afraid they're going to see war and blah 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 and so on and so forth. Okay, now, and by the way, your first name? Shmuel. Look at the top of the second column of the Ramban. First words. They wouldn't go back to Mitzrayim because of that war. The Jews were not going to meet Amalek in their lands, but rather, you see what I told you. So the Ramban asks your kasha. Pretty smart guy. Because he came from their land to fight with the Jewish people. Because he hates them. And the idea of running back to Mitzrayim is the nations that you're going to encounter in war, that you're going to initiate. You understand? So, the Ramban, everybody saying the same thing. The Rashi, the Rabbi Moshe, the Ibn Ezra, the Ramban are all saying the same thing. Hashem cannot take the Jewish people directly into Israel. He needs to harden them a bit. They've come out of Egypt. especially the diak of Rashi, Beshalach Parhsa, they're only leaving because the Pharaoh is forcing him to leave. And he's afraid they're going to go back. Hashem says, we got to take time. We got to fortify the psyche of these people before they encounter war. The difference is only whether we say ki means because it's close or in spite of the fact. Even though it's close, it takes them on a longer route. Here's what I'm getting into. I want to say one more thing about the Philistines and going into Israel. And that is, there's brought in Chazal, it's very, very famous. I think Rashi mentioned it someplace in Chumash. That the Jewish people had calculations of when the goals are supposed to end. In other words, the Chumash gives a calculation of how long the Jews were in Egypt, how long they were supposed to be there. We of course all know they were only in Egypt 210 years. The slavery lasted, also, according to the Sicha Chachamim, not more than 116 years, as we discussed a couple of weeks ago in our class, if you recall. But the Jews also had different cheshbonos. A lot of Jews somehow knew that you have to start counting from before. And half the tribe of Ephraim calculated the 400 years from the Bris Bein Absarim, from the covenant between the parts. The covenant between the parts happened when Avram Avinu was 70 years old, which is actually 5 years before Lech Lecha. We won't go into that. And they got together 30 years before the Exodus and fought their way out of Egypt. In other words, in the most grueling point in the slavery, a half a tribe of Jews fought their way out of Egypt and marched derech eretz Plishtim, straight up, all the way to Israel.
Before the Makkahs?
30 years, the Makkah Pesachakal Yud Chaydesh. 30 years before, in other words, in the worst time of Golus. The worst time of Golus were the 80 years from Moshe's birth till the departure. Right? 30 years before the Churban, you're talking about third or fourth generation slaves. They never saw freedom. Their parents never saw freedom.
Where did you say that? I never read that.
It's before Rashi says in a Chumash. And they fought their way out of Mitzrayim, and they went to Tzra.
With weapons they fought their way out?
It's not implicit. It seems that they snuck out.
And where they go?
How many?
Where next?
A half a shavet. Hundreds of thousands of, tens of thousands of people. And they went straight up, and they encountered the Gatim, which was one of the 5. Plishtim had 5 families. One of them is Gas. And they annihilated them. They killed every one of them. And it's these people that Yechezkel is Bechaye Mesim. The story of Ezekiel.
He killed every one of the
Jews.
Of the
Yes, every one of them. This is the Atzomas HaYavesh Shimon Bar Hashem. The Bnei Gas wiped out the Bnei Ephraim. Just wiped them off the face of the earth. They didn't leave one alive. And in the time of Churban Bayis Rishon, which is 410 plus 480 plus 30. Rechen mathematician. 410 and 480 is 970. 920 years after they were murdered, the Eibishter sends the Navi Yechezkel to resurrect them. And they got up and they were in Amrav. Of course, the Rambam says that it's all a Navi and a vision, but many Mefarshim learned that he brought them back. In fact, there was a family that lived in the time of the second Beis HaMikdash called Bnei Beseira, and the Bnei Beseira were from the Neshamas that Hechi Yechezkel, and they were a distinct group because they left Egypt before the Exodus, so they didn't inherit the land. They didn't own land, and because they didn't own land, they had no chiyuv to go to the Beis HaMikdash. There's a tesis in Masechta Pesachim that the Rebbe ben Beseira didn't go to the Beis HaMikdash on Pesach. And the question is, why didn't he go? There's a various explanations. Some say he was old, and one of the explanations was that since he was, Tesis says, since he was from this half shevet of Ephraim that left before Hashem took us out, they were poshet potif maliyah l'regel. They had no chiyuv to go to the Beis HaMikdash. This was the Bnei Ephraim. So there was an ominous history to this route, and the Jews knew it. In other words, it's not only that Hashem is afraid, that they're soft in the belly, and Beshalach Parei. There was a reason to be afraid. Now, of course, the Eibishter Kel Yochel, don't misunderstand. God could deal with the Gatim just fine, but He didn't want them to even counter war, according to the Rashi and the Ibn Ezra and the Ramban and the Strav Moshe. So He takes them a circuitous route. Rashi says what I'm telling you. Rashi says the Chumash. I forgot where, but the Chumash beferish. And we continue. Let's do now the Sforno. First page, by the Dalit. He says a different gedanke. He says a different thoughts. This is finally a different. The first 4 commentators all said essentially the same thing. He doesn't take him the short route because he doesn't want to get him into any trouble. The Sforno says as follows: He Beshalach part of a game Evli Nacham Alikim Derech as Plishtim says that it's as follows: Alpha P, although Shakavana Alikis Hoisa Laharilach as Yisrael Lahar Sinai LaKabbala Teira Umisham Yisrael. The divine intent was to bring the Jews first to Mount Sinai and then directly into the Holy Land. Ka'amra that says in the Teira, V'lakachti escham li liyom v'geim, and I'll take you into the nation. V'vescham el ha'ar, take you into the land. And the Sforno is assuming that if you leave Egypt and head due north, go straight up, you will pass Mount Sinai on the way to Plishtim. So he says, he doesn't read them on the road to Plishtim, though it's near means it's the way to go to Har Sinai, which is the next destination. Why? Now, the intent right now was Alicham Liyamsuf. He wants to take him to the sea, to the Reed Sea, to the and since Hashem wants to take him to the Yamsuf, as opposed to Eretz Yisrael, as opposed to Mount Sinai, this is why he doesn't take him straight up. A whole new insight. It's not because he was afraid of war, like Rashi said, and the Ezra said, and the Rabbeinu Moshe, the Ezra said, and the Ramban said. A whole new issue. Hashem doesn't take him on the Plishtim, which is the right route to go to Har Sinai. Right? Because he has another plan. They got to go to Har Sinai. They have to go to the Yamsuf. They have to see more miracles. More Egyptians got to die. The reason why he doesn't take him directly into Har Sinai and into Israel is Latviyam Shamas Pari V'Ched. He wants to drown their Pari in his armies. Al Derech, like it's written, Mashachti Alecha, Kishan Sisa, the story in Tanakh where Hashem brought down Sisa and his armies into the valley of Kishan, so they should be drowned in the sea. Okay? The shortest route, the Lachas mi Mitzrayim Yamsuf, to go from Egypt to the Yamsuf. Hoya derech eretz Plishtim was through the road land of Plishtim. Almost the Torah says, I made a mistake. Shakel Yizbar, the Eibishter, Leirat Salam Chesem Beisaderech, doesn't lead him on that road. I have to correct myself. He should have taken him to Kiryat Yamsuf, and then to Har Sinai. He doesn't. He's taking him to the Yamsuf. The quickest route to the Yamsuf is derech eretz Plishtim. I have to stand corrected. I made a mistake. Which would lead them to the Yamsuf, where they need to see more miracles, because he doesn't want them to encounter the Philistines. So he's taking them to the Yamsuf, and even this is going in a circuitous route. So the idea is basically the same, it's a little bit different. Now, I'm going to ask you to turn to the Bechaye. Now, I printed a lot of Bechaye this week, because it's all relevant. The Bechaye has a philosophy, has a tradition, in his commentary on Chumash, which is that on every parsha, page 4, on every parsha, he brings an introduction. The introduction of Bechaye to the parshas and the Torah are Musa, the beautiful Musa, Gewaltig. On Parshas Beshalach, the introduction is all about the idea of tests, which is a discussion that we touched on 2 years ago in our classes. The whole idea of tests, the test of Avram, and so forth and so on. He brings the whole thing about why Hashem tests Avram, why Hashem tests all different types of people. And he links the Jewish people's journey in the desert to a contiguous test, to a series of tests. So if I can lead you to page 4, left side, Kuf Zayin, where I made my arrows. V'chein, similarly, please look inside. Kishishalach Padali Yisrael, when the Pharaoh expels the Jewish people. Halicham Hashem Yisbarach Derech HaMidbar, God Almighty leads them through the desert. V'akoyel Ahoya, the reason that He leads them through the desert is L'naseisam, to test them, V'libchenes Libim, to measure their heart. Kishyatsu, when they left, Im Nesheim V'tapim, with their wives and sons, young people. B'midbar Ahu, in that desert, HaGodol V'aner Nechashar V'aka, which is great and awesome, filled with snakes, and venomous snakes and scorpions. Now, he had a shorter route. Who at its Plishtim going on the road that leads directly to the Philistines' lands? He doesn't do it. Why? He wants to test them. But he brings the pasuk. Right? The new piece. What does it mean? Pen doesn't mean perhaps. Pen means so that they shouldn't. So the way you read Pen Yenachama means because he knows for a fact that if he takes them that route, Pen doesn't mean maybe the Jews will be ready to go back. If he takes them that route, lest. He knows for a fact that he takes them that route, they're going to return to Mitzrayim. And Yenachama, so they shouldn't be able to regret it. Says the Rabbeinu Bechaye, Ein Safek Klapi HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem has no doubts. Hashem is not thinking maybe. He knows as a matter of fact that they're going to regret and go back to Egypt if we lead them on the short route. And the Pshat Pen Yenachim is so that they shouldn't be able to, in fact, do this. Go down 4 lines. V'chein bekan, I underlined the 2 words. Same is true here. Halichem derech hamidbar. He takes them to the desert for the derech as Plishtim, not to the land of Plishtim. Shalalasas lahem azmana, to give them an invitation. Sheishuvu l'mitzayim, they should go back to Egypt. Min haderech hu akara, from this short route. But the way we're not finished. Turn over your package. Okay. V'dah. And you need to know, says the Rabbeinu Bechaye. Page 5 now. Kikol in Yonei Yisrael u'mekreim b'midbar. All the ideas of the Jewish people and the events that happened to them in the desert. Hakel hayin isayin gomor, right here. It's all a complete test. Why? Kadesh yigdalu nafsham asichlius, that their intellectual minds should be developed b'madreges habetochen, their levels of trust in God Almighty. Shehu sheidish hamunu, which is the foundation of faith. And Hashem is putting them through the ringer. He's giving them all kinds of hardships. Every hardship is supposed to fortify them. So you have here, Meir Rabbi say, a second point. The first reason Hashem doesn't take them through the lands of the Plishtim because He knows for a fact that they're going to go back. The second idea is, okay, I made a mistake, but okay, we'll do it this way. The second idea is He's taking them to the desert, not because He knows they're going to go back, because He wants to fortify them. He wants to develop their faith. There's a very famous Ramban, I made in Nevuchim, where he talks about the 40 years in the desert, the story of the spies. He says the reason Yidden spent 40 years in the desert is they should push it, develop hardness. They should be able to fight. The Rabbi Bechaye says differently. Abish is testing them so they should develop trust in the Abish. So, before they're going to encounter a war, they have to have solid betachin. Their betachin has to be strengthened. So it's the same idea, but slightly different. It's not just he's afraid of getting into trouble going back to Mitzrayim. He wants to fortify them, empower them before they encounter war. Now, here's my mistake. Go to the top of the page. Second line from the top. You see what I'm reading now? Right here. V'kos Rabbeinu Chananel writes, he takes them to the desert as opposed to going straight into Israel for a different reason. V'hu, and that is, he doesn't take them directly into Egypt. You know why? Into Israel, Egypt. You know why? Because He wants them to see more miracles. If He would lead them directly into the land of the Philistines. And Hashem could actually place in the hearts of the Philistines, the Philistines shouldn't even stop him. By all means, pass right on through. They wouldn't stop him at all. The miracle would be small. Consequently, when the wisdom of Hashem decided to lead them through the desert, that in the midbar there's tests are many and great, like the Mon and so forth. So here's a new insight altogether. The Rabbeinu Bechaye says, because they're weak, and He wants to fortify them. Fortify them with what? With betachin. And that's why He takes them the long route. Rabbeinu Bechaye says something different altogether. Hashem can make a miracle, the Philistines shouldn't touch Him. But that would be a small miracle. He wants to perform great miracles. In order to perform great miracles, He's got to put Him in a very difficult situation. So, He doesn't lead them on the road to the land of the Philistines because it's so close, and the miracles are going to be tiny. He takes them into the midbar, and the miracles will be awesome. You follow? So if you have paid attention, you realize that the difference between the Rishonim this week is very subtle. Uncharacteristically subtle. I always love the Rishonim because the Rishonim, as a rule, one says morning, the one says night. Here they're saying almost the same thing, a few different kvetches, right? One says he doesn't take him this route because it's close. Another one says he doesn't take him this route though it's close. Another one says he doesn't take him this route to the Yamsuf, but takes him a circuitous route to the Yamsuf. Another one says he doesn't take him this place so they can go through a period of difficulty and have their betachin tested and become more fortified in their trust. And another one says he wants to show them greater miracles. Turn the page. Now we have an Albag. Okay. Now, if you'll notice from the Ralbag, okay, there's no page numbers. I didn't print pages in succession. I printed the first page of the parsha, which the Ralbag says the same as everybody else. And then I printed on page 7, I printed page Kuf Hey. Okay? I decided to learn this with you, although this is not really a pshat on the pasuk, because it's just interesting. The Ralbag was a Rishon. And if I asked the Ralbag is Ruach HaKodesh, as I mentioned to you on previous occasions, some consider the Ralbag very controversial. He said a lot of very radically unsettling things in quotations. But the Tzemach Tzedek quotes him because the Tzemach Tzedek felt he had Ruach HaKodesh. In other words, his words are the word of God. Page 7. But the Ralbag has a philosophy. What he does is every parsha in Chumash, he has what's called Pirush HaMilos, he translates words. And then he has the Musar of the Torah, the Hashkaf of the Torah. So he'll read, he'll translate Psukim, not just one, a whole bunch, like a whole story. And when he finishes the translation, all the Psukim, he'll start over from the beginning again and say, what's the lessons? So he starts with the parsha by saying Hashem didn't take him the short route, they shouldn't get cold feet. And on page Kuf Hey, he says, the first lesson we learned from our parsha is in good character. Turn over your package. There we go. Page 7 in the copies that I've given you. The first lesson, the first thing we can learn from our parsha is midas. It's fine. It's a good character. V'hu, and that is as follows. There's a lesson in the first pasuk in our parsha. You know what that is? When you undertake a project, do your best to do your best, and don't rely on God unless you must. V'hu, sharoi, it's appropriate. Lemisha yishtadol b'davar ma, who's undertaking to do any project. Sheyishma mikol ma sheyimna mevukash. He should avoid getting into situations that are going to prevent him from achieving his end. V'yechaven, he should intend el kol ma sheyagiyu el tachas hadarash. His attitude should be that no matter what happens, he should remain loyal to his purpose. Well, as that tira you see in our parsha, ki kasher rotza Hashem yisala, when the Eibishter wishes, lakachas Yisrael leila goy to take the Jewish people as a nation. Mishamre as hashvuah nishbal avesav, he's made a promise to their fathers that he's going to make them into his nation. His chakim, the Eibishter is smart about it. Bechol aparim shesh, in every imaginable way. Remember, we're dealing with God. God can perform miracles anytime He wants. Nevertheless, He uses His chokhmah to teach us this message. When you've got something to do, don't be lazy and rely on the miracle. Do everything you absolutely can to make it succeed, as God Himself did. The fact that He did many miracles, will teach them that God is the God of everything. Nevertheless, when He's taken them out of Egypt, He refuses to take them into the Holy Land directly. Who caught it? It's a close route. The Jewish people were not yet conditioned, they were not yet trained in tactics of war. Perhaps they're going to be afraid when they see war and go back to Egypt. Consequently, he leaves them on a distorted route, on a twisted route, to give them more time to fortify themselves. So the Rabbeinu Ralbag, Levi ben Gershom, is not changing anything. He's simply saying that this is a lesson. The lesson is, when you have something to do, don't be lazy and rely on a nest. Do everything, even God. For God, a miracle is no big deal. Still, He makes every effort, but derech hateva, to make the success of the Jewish people's departure from Egypt a success. Okay? Yes? Thanks for nodding. Turn the page. One of the rabbis said that the Eitz Ha'Chaim has 3 interpretations. The first one he gives is, it's a little bit connected to the Sforno. You know what he says? It was payback time. It was payback time. Hashem doesn't take him the short route. You know why? It's payback. Now what's payback? There's 2 parts to the payback. One part of the payback is to punish the Egyptians. The other part of the payback is, what do they call it in America? Reparations. Reparations. 210 years of slavery. Reparations. The Bechaye Vital says in his Pirush al Derech HaNigle, Lenochem ulakim derech as Plishtim. He doesn't take them direct route into Israel. He's taking them to the Yam Suf. He caught it even though it's close. You know why? The Jews got to collect 210 years worth of gelt. They borrowed. They didn't borrow nothing compared to what the Egyptians had. They're going to bring out all the resources, everything. They're going to follow the Jews into the Yam Suf, and they're going to pay for every hour of work. That's what he says. I'm doing this quickly because of time restraint, because of this. I can read it to you inside. Hashem doesn't have to take them to the Yam Suf for that. Hashem could let them go towards the Plishtim, and the party will follow him into the desert anyway. So for this, the Torah says, Ki karev hu. In other words, the Eitz Ha'Chaim says there's 2 points. Point number one, he's not taking them to Ezra. They're going to the Yam Suf, what the Sforno said, because they got to collect. Why do they have to go out of their way to the Yam Suf to collect? Go into the desert and talk the Pharaoh into chasing him into the desert? For that you have Ki karev hu. You have to divide the pasuk in half. The Jewish people leave Egypt on Parhas behest. He doesn't take another Plishtim. Ki karevu, even though it's near. Why? Because it's payback time, reparations. Take him into the desert and convince the Pharaoh to follow you. So for this you have. He divides it into 2 points. But the Eitz Ha'Chaim adds here the point that the Sforno made. Sforno speaks about payback to drown the Egyptians. The Eitz Ha'Chaim speaks about payback that the Jews should collect. So the pasuk becomes significant now. Remember how I started the class? The Jewish people leaving Egypt. The Philistines are that important. The first pasuk in Parshas Beshalach, you have to mention that they couldn't go this route because of the Philistines. The Torah says, and they didn't go this route, so they should pay back. That makes sense. To collect the Rachush Gadol. You follow? And I'm not going to read it.
So what does it have to do with the Philistines?
That's a Gesundheit. Hashem could have gotten payback in different ways. Hashem could have gotten payback by having the party chase them into the Midbar. For this, you have to have the union for the Philistines. But it's 2 parts. First of all, he's not taking him straight to Israel. He's not taking him straight to Canaan. He's taking him to the Yam Suf. So they should collect. But what about the possibility of them collecting in a different way? So for this, you have the situation with the Plishtim. It's 2 points. The Eitz Ha'Chaim divides it into 2. Turn to page 10. And then he brings 2 more insights.
But the Jews don't get anything from dead Egyptians.
They get their wealth. There was a tradition, when nations went to war, they would decorate their animals and themselves with all kinds of gold. And it was hidden away. And when the Jews borrowed that, the lion's share of the Egyptian wealth, they didn't take with them.
So they went and scavenged from the dead Egyptians on the seashore?
That's right. And Moshe was schlepping them away. Moshe had to schlep them away. And the Chazal say that the Eitz Ha'Chaim was so much more that what they borrowed in Egypt was insignificant, relatively speaking.
I thought the whole purpose was so Jews should see it and know that Hashem was on their side.
That's part of it. That's one part. That's what the Sforno says. The other part was Hashem made a promise to the others they're going to go leave Mitzrayim wealthy. He had to deliver.
Yeah, the donkeys loaded with gold and silver.
It says here 80 donkeys. What does it do in the Lashon?
How many donkeys?
Each Jew had 90 donkeys. The poorest Jew took 90 donkeys worth. Now,
It's like 1 tractor trailer.
right, well, it's quite a bit of gold and silver. I mean, the second Pirush that he brings is very similar to all the Mepharshim say, that they were afraid of war, but that it was worth it because of the Yam Suf. But the third Pshat of Eitz Ha'Chaim is worth reading inside. He has 3 different interpretations. Listen to this. Vayihi, and it was, Beshalach Pare, when the Pharaoh kicked the Jewish people out of Egypt, and Es Ha'om, the Jews take along with them the aid of Rav.
What?
Ha'om, the nation. The word the nation, Rashi says later on in Chumash, is a negative denotation. It doesn't say Yehi B'Shalach Pare as Bnei Yisrael, the sons of Israel. And it was when the Pharaoh kicked out the says the Eitz Ha'Chaim, this goes on the aid of Rav. The mixture of non-Jews that joined the Jews at their moment of success and triumph. And that's the problem. Why? Because Beshalach Pare is they're taking along a bunch of people who are not Jewish. And they're going to create a problem. They're going to get cold feet. They're going to chicken out. And that's why Plishtim. It's similar to all of the Mepharshim say, but this is this other emphasis. even though it's karevu, it's near, and it's derech eretz, it's the direct route, you don't have to go, you can find food, and they're going to be spared many tests. Still, he doesn't do it. This is the Aleph, Beis and Gimel that I circled. Yeah, still he doesn't do it because of the Eid of Rav. Okay, so the Eid of Rav's pave has a few gedanken. The middle gedanke is really consistent with the others. The first and the thought are pretty original, right? The first one is that he wants him to collect spoils, and the third one is that it's because of the Eid of Rav that he didn't do it. Now the Shalah, I'm going to skip. The Shalah is the same exact thing as the page 11. Just flip over your package. The Shalah is exactly the same thing as the Ralbag, that the Eibishter himself is teaching us a lesson to avoid challenges, to go around, to avoid tests. And then we go to page 12. Page 12 is an Arizal. And page 13 and 14 is a Maimer. This is one of those rare instances where you so clearly see how Chassidus is an evolution from Kabbala. It's not always the case. Frequently Chassidus says things that are different than Kabbala. Here we have something which is so remarkably uniform, except that the Arizal says it in Kabbalistic language, which means, for those of us who speak English, incomprehensible language, and the Rebbe says it as a glat balabatish. And that's how I'm going to finish the shir. The Sicha at the end you can do for homework. I want to do the Arizal and the Maimer. Okay? But as is my custom in all circumstances like this, before we get to the Chassidus, let's review what we have. And to be sure, we don't have that much. The same thing, almost the same thing over and over again. I'll tell you what the Rebbe says in the Sicha. V'hi Beshalach. Because the Pharaoh was kicking the Jews out of Egypt, as opposed to them going on their own. Right? Therefore, he doesn't lead them on the comfortable route to the lands of the Philistines because they're afraid they're going to get into trouble. Good? The Ezra says, not because the route is closed, but in spite of the fact that the route is, whatever, not in spite of the fact that the route is closed, but because the route is closed. He agrees with Rashi. Okay. The Ramban says the same thing. The Sforno says he was leading them not into Eretz Yisrael, not to Har Sinai. He's leading them to the Yam Suf. The most direct route to the Yam Suf is Derech Eretz Plishtim, and yet he doesn't take him Derech Eretz Plishtim because he wants them to see because of the Philistines. Okay. Now I want you to know, if you take a look in the Our People from Rabbi Mrs. Mendel, it's written under a pseudonym Jacobs, but it was written in Mendel. You know how many opinions there are what the Yam Suf is, Bechaye? Some say it's the Gulf of Aqaba, some say it's the Mediterranean Sea, and some people say it's a river. There's many different opinions as to where it occurred. Nobody knows for sure where it happened. Because you would argue, if you would find that spot, you'd find millions of dead bodies. You'd find a historical statement, a historical moment frozen that will be invaluable to archaeologists. Where is it?
Those was leftovers of Ezra, no?
The leftovers, think it is the bodies and the clothing and the wagons, the way they went to war. It's all there. They go fin. Now, of course, you have to remember that there's always the issue of the water rising and descending. So it's conceivable that it's beneath the water. What was then the surface, then the beach was beneath the water. In other words, if the world is now cooler than it was then, so that would be the case. It's also possible to know the location. So there's many opinions. The Sforno says the direct route to the Yam Suf is straight up, which I suppose is consistent with those who hold that the Yam Suf is actually the Mediterranean. But according to the Eizadas Toiv, that he doesn't take him straight up because he wants them to get the spoils of the Yam Suf, he obviously is disagreeing with the Sforno at Poshet what the Yam Suf is. It's not the Mediterranean, it's someplace else. He's not taking them straight. He's taking them out of the way to take them to the Yam Suf. Sforno says the straight route to the Yam Suf is up. And he doesn't take them straight. The Tada says the straight route to the Yam Suf is not up. Because the Yam Suf is up. You understand what I'm saying? The only way to understand this is to appreciate the fact that if you've ever studied the Chumash with the commentators, there's 4 or 5 opinions, if I'm not mistaken, of what the Yam Suf was. Where they crossed. The only constant is that they didn't cross. That they made a U-turn. They came back. They went out the same way they went in. They didn't have the schus to cross completely. Okay? So the Sforno says that they had to go to the Yam Suf to see the miracle of the drowning of the Egyptians. And he doesn't lead them directly to the Yam Suf. He gives a circuitous route to the Yam Suf because of the Plishtim. Correct? And Rabbeinu Bechaye brings the Rabbeinu Hananel. He doesn't take them the short route because he wants them to show them more miracles. And the shorter route would have been less miracles. Rabbeinu Bechaye himself says he doesn't take them the short route because he wants to test them and fortify their betachon. And Eitz Ha'Chaim says, first of all, he wants to take them out of the way to the Yam Suf so they should collect the spoils. And the other pshat that he brings that's original is that since it's Ezra, since they have with them the aid of Rav, and they're no good, he can't afford to take them to Rachav Plishtim, and that's when they go into the Midbar, which is the most painful and credible pshat on this whole Indian. Right? So this is what we have to date. Now we get to the Kabbala. The first paragraph is exactly the same thing as the Eitz Ha'Chaim. You have to remember, this is the same Mechaber. Rabbeinu Bechaye Vital, who wrote Eitz Ha'Chaim, wrote the Eitz Ha'Chaim also. And he says, Da ki vahi uloshen tzar. The word vahi is a painful terminology, right? What was the tzar? So the Rebbe says in his Sicha, the tzar was that the Pharaoh's kicking him out, they don't want to go. Remember how I started the class? He says, because they went along with an aid of Rav. For the sake of the aid of Rav, they couldn't go directly in. So the Eitz Ha'Chaim, the Arizal's Kabbala, brings us an idea that is directly the same, precisely the same as the idea found in the Eitz Ha'Chaim, which is the Nigla of the Chaim Vital, right? That because they had the aid of Rav, therefore they couldn't leave. But the next paragraph gives us a Kabbala. Okay, Vihine. Now, Marav Rabbi say, I am not going to try and explain this to you. I'm simply going to take out of it what is relevant for us, because I wish to demonstrate to you that we have over here a paragraph of pure Kabbala, and we're going to have a mimer from the Rebbe, which the Rebbe said in 1987 from Zion, which says exactly the same thing as this particular Kabbala, and makes no reference to it whatsoever. And you see, in this case, a Chassidus, which is entirely in contact with Kabbala. It's not always the case, but it's this case here. The nation of Plishtim represents the place of hair. The place of hair. Yeah, of the skull. Okay. If you want to know what this means, go speak to a Kabbalist. The only part that I'm going to explain to you is the following. The land of Plishtim has to do with Leah. Now, boys, what's Leah? Leah is Bina. Bina is richness and sophistication. Okay? So the pasuk says, Beshalach Parhsa. The Pharaoh kicks the Jewish people out. They could go derech as Plishtim kikarevu. They could walk into Israel via Leah, via the path of Bina. Says they wish to know, we're going to the Yam Suf. Why not? Keep reading. Okay, that they means the Jews, or they means the Plishtim are from Leah. They go to the Holy Land, which is not Leah. He's concerned. They're going to go in the place of Leah where there's the Shaidas, which means to say you give me to Racham that hide and say there's Talshalos, which is Leah. They're going to go back to Mitzrayim. The Sham Gamkin have a Bechinas Mitzrayim, because it's also there, Lila Mitzrayim. Lekach, for this reason, right here. He sees him derech hamidbar. It takes him to the desert. Yam Suf wants to bring him to the sea. You know why Yam Suf? Because Yam behind Rachel. Kabbalistically, Rachel is Yam, is the sea, which is Malchus. Have a sefer Dayan. Stop. That's all you have to read. The rest is not relevant for us.
You're scared that they're going to go so high they're going to fall apart.
Right. So he gives us a Kabbalistic insight. He doesn't want to take him to the land of Plishtim. Why not? Why not? Plishtim is Bina, it's Leah. You know what's going to happen if the Yidden go to Bina and Leah? It'll be a disaster. Kikarev, it's too close. He takes him another route. But he's Medayak. What do I mean the other route? Not the desert, the Yam. Because the Yam is Malchus, Rochel. Oh, that's where the Jews need to go. They need to go to the Yam. Malchus, Bittel, as a preparation to go into Israel. This is Kabbala. You understand? I don't understand. But when you see a Maimer, Mamish parrot this in Lashon HaChasidus, it gets pushing exciting. Turn over your package. Now we have a Maimer. This Maimer, Moirai V'Raboisai, This Maimed is the Rebbe's Maimed from 1987. Tov Shit Mem Zayin. I want you to know that every week I look through the Maimorim, listen to Maimorim of the Rebbe to see what the Rebbe has written on the parsha, on the first pasuk. And by Beshalach, I only found two. One is from Tavshachov Gimel or something, which was not available at the moment, and the other one's from Zayin. It's not a very frequently used Dibur HaMaschal because it's very often Basi Lagani. That's Parshas Beshalach. And he goes into a whole Kabbalistic issue. What is the Kabbalistic issue that he goes into? Listen carefully. He brings the classic idea. Again, I don't have that much time, so I'm going to summarize. But there's one point that I want to show you inside, which is Gereich and Geschmack and Gewaldig. Okay, you're listening to me, yes? Yeah? And that is that the Jews in Mitzrayim did Birurim. They elevated sparks. Right? And it's explained, V'hi Beshalach Pare Es Ha'om, that the Pharaoh actually sent along. Nitutzis Es Ha'om means with the people. You hear? V'hi Beshalach. Beshalach Pare. Pare is sending. Not like we learned in Rashi. He's kicking them out because they don't want to go. But Pumfaket. Beshalach Pare Es Ha'om. The Pharaoh is sending along with the Jewish people all kinds of sparks. In fact, I don't know if you know this. There's a medrash that says, in the Chitas of whatever, Monday or Tuesday, yeah, Ufaroi Hikriv, the Pharaoh came close. This is what the medrash says. Ufaroi Hikriv as Libun Sheyisol Avim Shabashamayim. The Pharaoh chases the Jewish people into the sea, and he's bringing them closer to God by this pursuit. And it says, Arizal, you know why the Pharaoh chases the Jewish people into the desert when they leave? Because they left a couple of sparks behind. And he says, Jews, you left a few sparks, come back and get them. And it culminates at the Yam Suf. In other words, the Kabbala of the Yerid into Mitzrayim, the Aliyah Mitzrayim, is a whole situation with sparks. The Jews took the sparks with them. The few they left behind, Pari comes and chases them after them and gives it to them. It is in this context that the Torah says, Beshalach Pari, and the Jewish people leaving Mitzrayim. Why? Because Asua, Kimitzula, Shein Badogim, Kimitzula, Shein Badogim. They've removed every spark of godliness that exists there. You know how he translates it? The Eibush is afraid the Jews should become too freilach in a klipa way. Because Plishtim represents tzolazikite, wild. And that's perfectly in concert with the Arizal's idea of Bina. Too comfortable with yourself. Not enough humility. You have to have bittul. Rachav is bittul. What the Arizal says, he doesn't want to take him the root of Leah. He prefers to take him the root of Rachav. The Rebbe says like this, he's afraid they should get overconfident, they should become cocky. Too tzolazin. So I'm going to ask you to look in the second paragraph. Page 13, second paragraph. V'hine. And we're going to finish the class with the help of God Almighty with this point. Okay? Okay? Why in the first pasuk in Parshas Beshalach is there a reference made to Philistines? Are they that important? Yidden leaving Mitzrayim. They're about to go to Kriyas Yamsuf, Matan Teira, Maisim et Plishtim. So all the Mefarshim give us different insights. Eitz Ha'Chaim gave us some very original ones. They got to collect spoils because they had Erev Rav, right? Kabbala Chassidus says Plishtim doesn't mean physical Plishtim. It means openness, freedom of expression that's not controlled and focused. Leinocham alakim derech Plishtim. Bina is higher than Malchus, but Bina is rich, and rich has its own risks. The risks of getting out of control. Out of control wealth is called Plishtim. You get it? So the Maimed is actually, without saying so, was mamish enlightening what Arizal said, and take a look with it. Let's read it inside. Behire. Mikivan, because when the Jewish people served God while they didn't exist in their body, especially the Jewish people serving Hashem in exile, we achieve a very high level. Kaniska was discussed in the first section of this Maimed, which I skipped. Move on, says the Heilige Rebbe understood. The Jewish people's elevating sparks with joy and gladness of heart. Says the Rebbe however, if it's conceivable, when a person becomes too happy, you become to a negative joy. You get it? But this is the Hasidic interpretation of Hashem doesn't take it to the land of Plishtim because Plishtim represents happiness, but uncontrollable happiness. And why Rabbi say, I am proposing to you that this Maimed is based on this shtickle Sefer Lakutim we just read. Bina, Leah, the smart guy, connecting to Hashem intellectually and passionately. You can lose your focus. He says, no, we're not going to Erech Plishtim, we're going to the Yam. Yam is Rachel, Malchus, Bittel. Let's read it inside. Okay, the Plishtim B'Lashon Mavi Amafulish. The word Plishtim in Hebrew means open from both sides. Open, free, hippieistic, as I like to call it. She'ein Allah, the word Plishtim means open.
What was the word you said?
Hippieistic. Hippie-like.
Oh, hippie. Okay, I got it.
I have a license to make up words. I got it from the Cracker Jacks. She'ein Allah mechitzas v'agbolas. There's no limits. Now, if a person is happy and uncontrolled, joy is a good thing. But joy is supposed to be a constructive thing. Joy is only a constructive thing when it's got a spearhead. Stam to laws and a joy is klipa. It's a joy of frivolousness, of emptiness. Since Jewish people are being mavared, birudim, and struggling, who knows what for, who knows how much, to achieve birudim, they're going to be happy about it. Ezra Hashem has to protect them, that when they enjoy and celebrate their avodah, the joy should be focused and controlled, not uncontrollable. Hashem doesn't let them go the route of Plishtim. He doesn't let them go the route of open and unrestrained joy, because it's going to be klipa. This doesn't mean don't misunderstand. Hashem isn't saying don't be happy. No, be joyous. But the joy's got to be with a spearhead. Ella, it is only sha'afal pi kain, even though a joy is experiencing excessive and overflowing joy. Top of page Gimel now. You're doing avodah higher than limitation. It's such a fashion, the Plishtim the Kedusha, it's open, but open in a holy way. Open in a holy way means it's got a focus. It's not all over the place. It's beyond all measure and limitation of holiness. Okay? And he continues, and this is why you go into Eitz Yisrael, which is representative of an infinite land, to the point of Parshas Beshalach nafshi, you achieve Parshas Beshalach, but not Wildkeit. There's a very big difference between Chasidische Simcha and Klipa Simcha. Klipa Simcha is scattered. Chasidische Simcha is focused. They got to go to the Yamsuf, take the bittel of Rachel into their joy, and that'll be a healthy Simcha. Now, my Rebbe, I want to tell you something very, very interesting. Okay? There's a Maimah from the Rebbe Chayisor Tavshin Yud Beis, which is based on the Maimah Nayin Tes, which is based on the Hemshech Concept of the Fidik Yabin Tzadik Zayin, which is based on the Maimah Nayin Tes. And he says in that Maimah, a Gvaldik Avort. He says, the Gemara says, also la'adu u'mal of fifth chek be'elam hazeh. A person is not allowed to laugh out loud in this world. Only when Mashiach comes. Why? Because when a person becomes too happy, too free, too giddy, they become careless. And he says, therefore, tzaddikim gemurim are allowed to laugh. Because the tzaddik gomur, in other words, the problem with laughter is not you're supposed to be sad. The problem with laughter is you got to be disciplined. And the Maimir is Medayik, also la'adun malav pif tchek be'elam hazeh. Now, oz yimol tchek be'elam. When Mashiach comes and Birudim are completed, then you can laugh uncontrollably. Because in the Osad Lavoi, you're not afraid of the Unikas HaChitzeni, you're not afraid that the Mugish is going to go to Makam Shenei Roi. You follow? And there's a Gavaldika example for this historically. And I'm going to share it with you. I'm going to keep you a few more minutes, but it's worth it. In the time of the Beis HaMikdash, they had Yom Tif. And Yom Tif was Pasha, a feast. They would get together in family groups, in extensive family groups, and Pasha, eat and drink and have a good time. And drink, and laugh, and be free. And for this reason, they fasted Bahab. They fasted after Yom Tov in case someone got a little bit too excessive. And the Gemara says that they would send shluchim. The Sanhedrin sent around shluchim, wherever Jews were collected, to make sure that the mechitza stayed up and the shaitel stayed on. They sent people to make sure there should be ur. You understand me? Yeah. So the Rebbe has a Moedik Kasha. In the time of the second Beis HaMikdash, what was the happiest day of the year? It's a no-brainer. Purim. Purim was brand new. And Purim affected every Jew in the world. And Purim was Klaya. Purim was Hitler. And they survived. And the halacha is, you're supposed to drink to the point where you're out of control. Where are the shluchim? Where's the Bahab? Says the Rebbe here in Esenes. Purim is a day that's Yom Kippurim. Yom Kippur is only similar to Purim. Purim is higher even than Yom Kippur. It's the Madrega of Goyel L'Malam Didav Agbola. On Purim, you drink till you're out of your mind. There's not going to be any Kisach Yitzayim. Yom Tov, yes. Because Purim is higher than Yom Tov. Because Yom Tov is Deiraisa, Purim is Derabonon, and Derabonon is higher than Deiraisa. So Yom Tov, they're sending Shluchim. Don't get excessive. Le'nocham alakim derech Plishtim. Purim. Oz yimal is chayk pino. Laugh all you want. Because there's not going to be a nikas achitzayim. You're out of control drunk. There's no clip on Purim. You hear the gedank? So the way you read this Maimon is as follows. Vahi Beshalach Parhsa Ha'om. This is the first Exodus, not the final Exodus. Because it's the first Exodus, the final Exodus. And of course you can add all the Pirushim from before. Beshalach Parhsa is making them leave. They don't want to go. As Ha'om, they're taking along Erev Rav. Bottom line is, Yidna leaving Mitzrayim. They're not allowed to have joy without any limits because there's going to be a klipa. That's like they're too close to God. That's the way I read it. Takes them a different route. Takes them to the Yam. Bring bittul into that joy. Be happy, but with the bittul. When Mashiach comes, Yinachem Sforno derech Plishtim. He's going to take us that route. You know why? Because we're not going to have that concern. Verstanden? Okay.